And we're live. Welcome back to the Not Important Gaming Podcast. I am Jeremy.
I am Derek.
We'll not have Reed joining us tonight. Unfortunately, he's busy. But we do have a couple of great topics that we're covering tonight. We're going to be covering the PUBG tournaments just happened, and the No Man's Sky Resurrection with the next updates. But to kind of kick us off, Derek, what have you been doing this week? Been doing any gaming?
As far as this weekend goes, I was out of town, so I actually didn't have much time to game. I was mainly visiting family, but I will say that I did spend like another hour or two on the new No Man's Sky update, just to kind of like play around with it and get more of a gist of what it's about. But yeah, outside of that, it's been a pretty busy weekend. But what about you?
No, I get you. It's been a pretty busy week for me too. I managed to get a bit of gaming in, but between I'm just now finishing up moving, and I'm actually currently in my temporary studio before I'm gonna be moving out to my permanent studio here in a couple months.
Nice.
Yeah, I did manage to get a bit of gaming done. I actually been playing a few games. I've been playing a lot of. I mean, as you know, I've been playing a lot of For Honor lately.
Oh yeah.
We just had the faction war end. Part of the Viking side, and we actually the Vikings won this faction war. Those things, they last like a really long time. They last a solid a couple months. So long, hard amount of fighting. Finally finished up and came out on top.
Nice.
But on top of that, I was also playing. I played a little bit of Shadow of War. I played about 5 hours of Shadow of War. It's the sequel to Shadow of Mordor. I don't know if you played that at all.
Oh, were you talking to me about that last week?
I might have been.
Yeah, there was some. I think I vaguely remember you mentioning that. Yeah, no, I'd like to try that out, but actually, it's funny because over the weekend I just finished getting my laptop fixed, so I think I'm finally able to start diving into a couple new games now. So
yeah, it's interesting. It's still very much like the Shadow of Mordor kind of play style, but I think they learned a decent amount from their last thing. The reason I got it, it was on Green Man Gaming, because Green Man Gaming has their summer sale going on. I don't know if they still do.
Yeah.
But they did at the time, and holy crap, did they blow Steam's summer sale out of the water. Like, they have a ton of big name games for like dirt cheap. They had Shadow of War. I got that for like 75% off.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I got it for $15, where it's a $60 game.
Nice.
So I played a little bit of that, and it's very interesting. It's like I said, very much similar in vein to Shadow of Mordor, but they learned a lot. I think they learned a lot, especially with the Nemesis system. I think they found a middle ground between making it a difficult game and making the Nemesis system work.
Yeah, that's good. I've heard good things about Green Man Gaming. I remember there were a few games that at the time when they were on sale, I was thinking about going through them to get it. But I didn't really. That was 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. So like, I guess I didn't really know them all that well, so I wasn't sure if it was. I wasn't too confident about going through them. But then, like, more the time went on, like I heard people really vouch for them, and yeah, apparently, I mean, if they're doing better sales than Steam Summer Sale, then yeah, that's definitely
it genuinely shocked me when I saw that. Like, they had what was it? I was interested in getting Skyrim VR and Fallout 4 VR on the Steam sale, but their Steam sale had them 10% off. So I didn't end up getting that. And I didn't get it with the Green Man Gaming sale either, honestly, just because I don't know, I'm not entirely sold on getting those yet in VR. But they were actually a lot cheaper. They were 33% off. Yeah, no, they're just absolutely kicking Steam's ass in terms of sales.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But the last game I ended up getting, and this is one that Reed actually talked me into, is Wizard of Legend. And it's kind of this interesting.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, no, I've never heard of it before either. And I don't have a ton of time playing it just yet, but it is certainly like really interesting. It's this kind of top-down roguelike, and there's a lot of it's very fast-paced. It's a lot about like trying to mix and match different spells to try and get this like interesting blend of fast and heavy attacks. It's a very fast. Yeah, it's a very fast-paced game. It's a lot of fun. And I was surprised to see something like that. It almost reminds me a little bit of I don't know if you ever played Rogue's Legacy.
Actually, my brother used to play it.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of that, without the permadeath and without the like the weird kind of quirky stuff. You know, like having a character with dyslexia or something like that. But it maintains that feel of like you go in, and every time you do a run, you're going to earn enough to advance your character at least a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, that actually comes highly recommended. I haven't played a whole lot of it, but I've loved every second I have been playing it.
Who developed it?
Who did develop it? Let me look real quick. Come on, start page. There we go. Contingent 99. Let me see if they have anything else. The Occultist Simulator.
Yeah, I can't say I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, no, they're an indie dev team for sure.
Okay.
They've got, looks like they've got 7 games, 2 DLC packages. Their most recent game is Cultist Simulator. But they've also got Fightin' Herds, which looks like a My Little Pony fighting game.
Yeah.
Aegis Defender, Staxel, Disco Elysium. Yeah, no. A lot of weird games I'd never heard of before.
Gotcha.
But Wizard of Legend was certainly interesting, and I picked it up for 10% off its normal price. It looks like it's $16 normally. I picked it up for $14.
Yeah, is it just on the Switch?
As far as I can tell, it's only on. Is it on the Switch? I didn't realize it was on the Switch.
Yeah, I think it is. It's.
Yeah, I'd gotten it on PC.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I know. It's definitely been a lot of fun though.
Yeah, that's good. I need to find new indie games to get into, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of new stuff that was announced this past year in terms of, like games that aren't going to be coming out this year, but are going to be coming out like later in 2019 and 2020. But definitely like looking to kind of get more into indie games, get out of just like, mostly like AAA backed, dev games. I mean, I don't know, something about there's a few indie games that I remember seeing. I don't even know if some of the ones I'm thinking of right now would classify as indie, but there was a game a while back that actually interested me. I think it was called Darkest Dungeon.
Yes, I play that in class every once in a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
It is an indie game. It's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looked really interesting. I mean, it kind of seemed like one of those games, at least from the outside looking in, where there's like a pretty big like build up system, to your characters, like as you go. I mean, like over time, and stuff like that, where it's just, plus the art style is just amazing. I love games that look like that, but it seemed pretty involved in terms of like mechanics of how the battle system works and how it progresses over the course of the game. And so no, but I had no clue that you actually played it, let alone like in class. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot of fun. It's really interesting because it's got this really, really cool stress mechanic in the game. Where your characters will progressively, as you go through dungeons, they'll get more and more stressed out, and if they reach a breaking point, they can start developing. Well, they'll develop new characteristics. Sometimes they're good, but more often they're bad characteristics.
Yeah, they just go insane.
They'll just go insane. Like you'll have characters that will they'll snap and they'll become greedy, and they'll start eating food without you giving them permission to eat food, or they'll start attacking teammates.
Oh wow. Yeah, that seems pretty interesting.
It actually is so intense that actually, if they get too stressed, they can actually have a heart attack.
Oh shit! Is that like a perma death on your character or something? Or
Yeah,
is it like...
it's so you don't have like you. There is a permadeath system. When a character dies, they're dead for good. But you can always hire more characters.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so that keeps it going, but it keeps it interesting at the same time.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's really interesting when you launch the game. It has this like message where it talks about like kind of the tone of the game, and it says, I love it. It says, "This is a game about making the best of a bad situation." It's I can't remember exactly what it says, but it encourages you to rather than trying to like quick save and save scum and stuff like that. It encourages you to accept failure and to accept.
Yeah, just kind of like deal with the losses and
yes,
move on. Yeah. That's really cool. I might pick that up because it seems like it got like pretty good reviews on Steam, and I've watched a few people stream it on Twitch, and it seemed like an interesting game as far as like an indie game to get into.
Oh yeah, it's worth it. It's
came out a while ago, I guess. Yeah, it was like a couple years ago. Oh
yeah, there's a couple of DLC out for it. It has, and I like it because it's got this Lovecraftian feel to it. Oh, I didn't realize. I guess I just never realized there was a Steam workshop for it. Yeah, so there's a really cool like Lovecraftian feel to it. The combat system is surprisingly deep. Like at a level you wouldn't expect from a
right
side-scrolling indie game. And wow, I've only got 6 hours in the game, but it feels like I've got like 20. It is very stressful. Yeah, I know more than a couple times I've rage quit in the middle of class.
Yeah.
You just have this entire like right. It kind of has that XCOM kind of feel where you'll have this like crack squad of adventurers, and they're like your best of the best, and they all just one by one in one fight will get picked off and die immediately.
Yeah. Oh god, it's like tactical strategy games, XCOM. Just thinking about all of that.
Yeah.
No, I can see how there's kind of like a parallel between the two if it works that way.
Oh,
you just kind of like one by one, just kind of get picks off, and you just have to deal with it and get new characters and try to make the best out of that. But it looks like it's only going for like $24.
Yeah,
so
that doesn't shock
it's
me.
Not bad.
It's definitely been out for a while, so
it's not a bad pickup.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
there was oh no, that's fine.
Had a brief disturbance in the studio here, but we're all good now. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting game, and if you're interested in it, I would absolutely recommend it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pick it up at this point. I just kind of needed like that last push to get me to buy it.
Right.
Yeah, because I've done enough looking into it, and I'm like, yeah, I really want to play it. But yeah, now I guess I mean, especially seeing as how it just it seems like one of those games where I can get quite a bit of hours into it, especially for an indie game. Like, that's always something I look for in indie games. It's probably the reason why I've avoided a lot of indie games, is because I feel like, there's just not much bang for your buck in terms of, well, maybe not like bang for your buck, but like if it's cheap enough, I feel like it'll be worth the price. But I typically look for gameplay hours, and a game like this definitely seems like it'd be able to deliver on that. So.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely depends on the game. I mean, obviously they're like the big name indie games, the ones that will really hold your attention. Stuff like Dead Cells or Papers, Please, FTL. Like FTL got huge. Those are all really good ones. What was the one? There's one, and it's gonna drive me insane. Hollow Knight. It's another really interesting one. It's like a side-scrolling Metroidvania.
Oh wow.
It's got this really, really unique art style, and I like it a lot. But anyway, we've rambled on about indie games and the like enough, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot about indie games to go over.
We could just talk forever about it.
Yeah.
So we got a couple of topics. Then we've got the PUBG tournament just recently happened, the charity event, and the was the invitational that happened after that.
Yes.
And then we've got No Man's Sky's Resurrection. What do you wanna get started with?
You want to jump into the PUBG?
Sure. We can jump into PUBG. I'm going to be completely honest. When I picked this topic, it was the main thing I wanted to talk about was Shroud's. Was the incident during the charity event, the charity showdown, in which he had. It appeared that the game had bugged out and robbed him of a kill. But I was doing some research earlier today, used some last minute stuff. And I saw that actually that kill, or he actually wasn't robbed of that kill. It was legitimate because what had happened, he downed a guy that was up on a rooftop, and his partner had kind of crawled over to pick him back up. Shroud went in to secure the kill, and he lobbed a grenade up on the roof. Now, from the angle they were casting it at during their live stream, the way it looked was as if the grenade had landed next to the guys and gone off.
Right.
And that's what everybody had assumed. I mean, the commentators were making fun of of Bluehole, the developers for PUBG.
Oh yeah, it raised quite a few eyebrows, and that
did.
ended up apparently being one of the more like noteworthy mentions of the tournament. I think with quite a few people calling it a bug and claiming that the game isn't really ready to be a serious esport.
See, and that's I have to eat my own words because I was right along there with it. I mean, I've been talking about how I don't think it's ready to be an esport for a long time, and I still think so. But this is not what I thought it was. But I was one of the ones who, I saw that and I was like, aha, see? Right there. That's...
Right. Well, to, come to your defense, I mean, I think, everybody was thinking that. Everybody was kind of like, this is supposed to be professionalism and lol,
Yeah.
There was really nothing... that it didn't really look good at the moment. But then, it is good that PUBG Corp, they managed to review the footage and prove that, for sure that it wasn't a bug.
It actually
it was really kind of hard because of the it got obscured by the angle of the viewer's camera. It just made it seem like it was a direct hit on the players when it wasn't.
Yes, it bounced a decent distance away. It was close enough to do some damage, but not enough to get kills.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, I didn't end up watching the Invitational, but it's really cool. As I was kind of looking into it and catching up with the details after the fact, it happened on Friday, didn't it?
Yes, it did. I actually got, because I had a friend who I wasn't planning on doing the topic initially, but I had a friend who blew up my notifications and had he blew up my phone with all of this stuff.
Well, it's definitely one of the biggest things that happened this week in terms of gaming. So I mean, it makes sense. It was a big charity showcase. I think it was a $1 million prize pool where the proceeds went to any charity of choice, for the people who
Yeah.
ended up winning it. So, but overall, it was a really good event. They had good turnout. The competition was pretty fierce. I mean, like, they had some of the best within PUBG. As far as pro players that were playing, I mean, Shroud, Ninja, and Dr. Disrespect, they were all there, and it was just, there was quite a bit of competition. It got a good amount of eyes on it, and overall, it was actually, I think I remember reading that it's been the biggest competition event so far for PUBG in its life cycle. So
it was massive. It had a huge following on their stream, and there's the thing. I'll shit on PUBG all day long. In terms of, I think it's overstepping its boundaries and what it's shooting for. But when they're doing a charity event, I will never shit on somebody for doing a charity event. I don't care.
Yeah, the intention is obviously
I will never ever it doesn't matter how broken your game is. If you're doing a charity event, I'll support it 100%.
Why don't you like sick kids, Jeremy?
Exactly. Sick kids. Something about it makes me angry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna punch him right in the face.
I want to throw a chair. Yeah. But no, I mean, I get it. Like, because PUBG it's been one of those games that it's kind of hit or miss for a lot of people. I think ultimately that's just kind of like the mindset behind that entire genre of battle royale. It's like you're either into it or you're not. But somebody like, for me, for example, who really isn't all that much into the battle royale franchise, and it certainly didn't play PUBG. I'm looking at this, in hindsight, after the competition, I was just like, well, it was a good event. It was a good event, and if they keep up stuff like this, then I would definitely be in support of it. I mean, anything for charity, like whether you're talking like SGDQ, AGDQ, any of the really big gaming events that deal with charities, always end up getting big turnout just for that fact. If anything, for that fact, less about fanboys kind of swarming in on the event because of the gameplay. It ends up actually getting a lot of people outside of the interest of the game to kind of just support the charitable aspect of it. So,
right. I don't know,
it is really cool. Yeah.
It's just frustrating for somebody because I am into battle royale. This is the thing. I don't want people to think that I'm like, oh, battle royale sucks. Battle royale's a bad game mode and all this stuff. No, I like the idea of battle royale. I just don't know that the game mode lends itself well to esports. But I also don't think I don't think it has. So I don't really like the fact that every game nowadays is trying to shoot to be an esport. They're trying to, we need to be the next big esport to be taken seriously, and I don't think that's true.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
And I think that in certain cases that can even come as a detriment to your community and your player base when you're not focusing on the things that they're asking for, and instead you're focusing on how to make this game beat. And I feel like Blue Hole's been guilty of that in the past. I don't think they're the worst developer in the world. They've made a lot of mistakes, but there have definitely been worse cases out there. Yeah, and it's just one of those things. There's the battle royale format. It's going to require a lot of tweaking, and it's going to require handling how esports are scored in a very different way from any other kind of shooter, because of the degree of randomness inherent in battle royale, and the degree. I mean, when you look at like other esports, you look at stuff like Counter-Strike, Rainbow Six, Dota. They're not games that are based on randomness. They're games that are based on having everyone on an equal playing field, where
exactly
where skill presides over overlock. And the problem
I feel
is,
like if you incorporate really any true element of art or like RNG into esports, you're kind of asking for it to fail. You know what I mean? Because RNG really should not have like any place in, you know, the top level like competitive aspect of gaming. I just, because it's almost like just automatically admitting that, you know, the level field is just going to be randomly like, you know, tilted to one side or the other. You know, the playing field is going to be, you know, just tilted, and you know, you really do need to, in order to, I think in order for a lot of people to really engage into an esport, that they need to feel as if it's, you know, the outcome is, you know, of you know, who wins and who doesn't is going to be entirely dependent on skill, you know, execution and strategy, rather than an element completely outside of their control, like, you know, random, you know, chests, like, you know, in a Fortnite, for example, you know, there's a $500,000 tournament going on right now. I believe it's at least going on right now. It's been talked about lately, anyways. But I do believe it's actually underway right now. How you know, you could start out and you could get, you know, a pump shoddy and a couple you know, shield, you know, or pot or something like that completely set you up, you know, for the early play, you know, or you can just kind of like not get anything, you know, just, you know, open up a chest and get, you know, nothing but like crafting materials and not have a gun, and then, you know, you just get kind of blown out of the early rounds.
Right. I think that doesn't that's kind of thing I was talking about. I'm saying it doesn't lend itself well to esports, and you're going to have to do a lot to counteract that. Because, I mean, on one hand, you can't take away the randomness, because that's what makes Battle Royale
that's how the game is, yeah.
But at the same time, you have to find some way to counteract that. And, you know, I've had this conversation a few times. And I think this is, at least in my opinion, the best way to do it is to have kind of like how in like a bike race, rather than you competing in one single race, there are several races. It's less about coming in first, and more about consistently placing. And I think that if you ran Battle Royale tournaments kind of in that vein, where rather than it being about coming out on top every time, but if you ran several rounds and scored people based off of how high up in the ranks they placed every game, I feel like that would be the best way to counteract that. Because sure, you might drop in one game and not find any valuable loot and get ganked immediately by a guy who dropped in, found a Car 98 suppressor and the whole kit. But just by odds, just by sheer number of times that you'd be playing, that's not. You'd be more likely to land in an average loadout every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. No, that's actually a really good point, because, you know, when it comes down to it, and I think they actually do something similar to that in the Fortnite tourneys, but it's not exactly what you described. But what you described is essentially, it would make the most sense in trying to like run multiple games to, you know, make it all about kind of like an average between the games that you know, attempts to you know, close in the gap of that RNG, you know, between players. You know what I mean? Like, so instead of everything riding on one game, where that game, you know, could have somebody get really unlucky from the start, right, you know, versus somebody who just got, you know, pretty much a full arsenal right off the bat. You know, if not everything rides on that one game, and you have multiple games where it, you know, allows that, difference to not really matter as much, then yeah, I think that's a way to make it more fair for sure. I don't know that you would cut it out entirely, um, cut out like the RNG aspect entirely, but again, kind of like you said, I mean, to change the RNG aspect to battle royale games is to change the game, which is in and of itself not something that would happen. But it just I think it highlights a bigger picture that you really in order to kind of transition battle royale games into esports, they can't just kind of like wing it. There has to be good preparation. They can't be naive enough to think that just because the games happen to be popular right now that they're going to do well as esports. They have to pay attention to the details and make sure that it's not going to be completely skewed once they actually end up doing it.
No, of course. I mean, that's kind of thing. So when you look at the games that ended up being very successful, Counter-Strike, they're very focused. They're very just in general, even playing grounds. I mean, I know about the trillionth time I've said it, but that's because it's that important. It's not interesting to watch someone lose because of bad luck. It's not interesting to watch someone win because of good luck. What you want to see is you want to see someone overcome a skilled team because they had more skill, they outplayed them. Which,
yeah, absolutely,
for the most part, that's what you're going to see in a battle royale tournament. But there's more room for outliers. There's more room for freak incidents. I don't know. Maybe I'm making a bigger deal of it than it actually needs to be, and that it actually is.
No, I mean, I think it's a perfectly legitimate concern. I mean, I've heard this argument from people who are actually play professionally in Fortnite. I follow actually a few streamers who are pretty big, a couple of the members of TSM and whatnot, and yeah, they just they tend to echo those thoughts more or less, about how there's room for improvement in the system itself. The professionals, you would think, for as much as they love the game, that they're 110% behind it, but they understand that the only way that this is going to happen is if they do it right.
Of course. The other thing, and this is only like tangentially related, but like on kind of the grounds, or on the topic of what makes a good esport. I just kind of want to harp on this for a second, which is games that are constantly changing between esports seasons, which PUBG is guilty of. But more egregious is stuff like Overwatch. Overwatch is constantly introducing new heroes and tend to do it in between seasons. And it makes it very difficult to keep track of the meta. It's just one of those things where it makes it difficult to be a viewer of things.
Yeah.
Like, I know I keep going back to Counter-Strike, but I mean, Counter-Strike is like the quintessential esport. It's been around for so long. It's been in the esports circuit for so long. There's a reason. Counter-Strike doesn't change. They're not constantly making hot fixes. They're not trying to rebalance stuff. They're not introducing new guns. Counter-Strike has pretty much always been the same game, and all they've really released, to my knowledge, is minor bug or minor weapon tweaks and bug fixes, and it makes that very easy to be a Counter-Strike viewer.
Yeah, because it's very consistent. You don't have to worry about a major overhaul or some patch update that completely. I mean, because you do you see a lot of that in battle royale games. I know specifically Fortnite, a number of even professionals were pretty pissed about the fact that the meta was like constantly changing between the seasons, and what was actually doing just fine, a weapon that was doing just fine, it wasn't too overpowered or whatever, would get completely nerfed, or this one would just get completely buffed, and it would just change the way that people have to play. And when you're trying to build a team of people and a strategy around their strengths, it kind of throws a monkey wrench right in that. So I can understand the hesitation for a lot of people to at least those who are competing in those games to want to really dive headfirst into them if they have to deal with that. Because personally, I mean, but yeah, Counter-Strike, games that are more consistent, obviously I think they're kind of favorable to not only the professionals who are able to depend on keeping the same general play style that they have when they compete, but also the viewers who know that the meta hasn't changed either. They could follow along with it a lot easier rather than having to constantly like learn what's new with the game.
Yeah, PUBG. I remember people were absolutely up in arms when PUBG released the vaulting update. Not because vaulting was a bad thing, but because vaulting fundamentally changed. I mean, it functionally removed one important skill in PUBG and replaced it with another. Because pre-vaulting, one of the skills you had to have as a PUBG player was crouch jumping. Basically, I mean, you'd have to learn. Like, I remember there's a spot that I ended up having to practice crouch jumping because we would drop there so frequently. That was the wall in Yasnaya, between the police station and this mansion behind it. And it was just the perfect height that you could crouch jump over this wall. But after they removed crouch jumping and installed vaulting in its place, it became a skill that was less focused on learning how to crouch jump over things, and became more a skill of knowing how to properly vault without getting shot in the face while you did so.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that just kind of fundamentally, I mean, it seems like a small thing, but I mean, those small things can make the difference. I mean, again, Counter-Strike. I mean, Counter-Strike is just such a highly competitive game that one botched flashbang can cost you a round.
Right.
And I mean, that's the level that we're talking about. Like when we're talking about people playing esports, is one minor mistake can cost you an entire game. And for the meta to be changed so drastically, it can really throw a wrench in the whole thing. And I guess that's why I'm not super wild about like stuff like PUBG, where they're constantly changing, they're constantly adding new guns, they're constantly adding new maps, because it's forcing these people, instead of trying to focus on specifically new strategies for the established game, it's forcing them to constantly kind of have to adapt to the new pieces of information and the new tools that the developers are pushing out. And
yeah, it's almost like it's just kind of taking the emphasis away from trying to build yourself in skill over time, and instead trying to, like you said, I mean, kind of like adapt to external factors of that aren't really about like strategy and execution, and it's more about like map knowledge and understanding the meta changes and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's I think ultimately when it comes down to it, is that it's a difference of what the viewer prefers, because there's definitely like, I can see the argument for people who actually do like games that aren't as centered on like, high risk, high reward type competitive settings like Counter-Strike, where botch flashbang and you're done. Where one mistake kind of, costs you all. But for me personally, that's where I lean, obviously.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of, I guess there's a lot of more casual viewers that would be into just kind of like I tend to think of Overwatch when I think of not necessarily games that are casual in like skill in like the leagues or whatever,
Right.
but the way that the entire tourney is kind of thrown together and how it
It's not
doesn't
as it's not
seem
as
like
high
it's as
risk.
hardcore.
Yeah, it's not as high risk, high
Right.
reward. Which I mean that comes with a game like Counter Strike, where it is, I mean, you get 1 life per round.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, and just in general, I guess one of the things I do want to say is just because I dislike it doesn't mean I can absolutely see even people arguing that it would be a good thing that the meta is constantly changing, because it keeps things fresh. I can see that argument. It's just personally not for me. I do like you're saying, games that are very, very high risk, high reward.
Right.
Overwatch, well, yes, it's a lot less risk and reward. I mean, you're able to respawn several times around, which obviously allows you to make more mistakes and to take more risks. But my big gripe with Overwatch, honestly, is that they're constantly adding. And again, this could be argued both ways, but the fact that they're constantly adding new heroes fundamentally changes the way that people are playing it. And nerfing and buffing different heroes. It basically changes the balance in the game and makes it difficult to play certain heroes well, making it easier to play other ones. And you'll watch teams that may have been great one tournament sink to the bottom of the barrel because the thing that they were good at is no longer a useful skill in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and with the introduction of new heroes, in Overwatch, I think there's an aspect of like having to learn the characters first, and I think depending on when they're launched, a lot of people, those characters aren't really going to be esports ready, for quite a while, because
Right.
people aren't going to feel like, if they only have 30 or so hours, into any given character, and that's probably a low estimate, then they're not going to feel confident enough to bring that on a world stage and compete with it against a pretty large prize pool. So I think introducing new characters is kind of like, I get that the league may want to see somebody main the new one. I forgot what his name was.
Wrecking Ball, which, man,
Hamtaro.
It's a really bad name for the character. Well, Hammond is what the community is calling him, but his official name is Wrecking Ball. And wow, what a bad, coming from a team that is known for being extremely imaginative and having very interesting characters with very interesting. You've got a giant gorilla named Winston, and then
Right.
you bring out this character he is a giant wrecking ball, and you just name him Wrecking Ball. What the hell, Blizzard?
Yeah, that's
you
very
dropped the
original.
ball there.
Yeah.
No pun intended. You dropped the ball.
But it seems like it's kind of counterintuitive to what they want to, continuously release, new heroes, because on one end they obviously want to see people playing Wrecking Ball, in the big leagues. I mean, they would love to see it go, to esports, as early as possible. I think if anything, just to get exposure on the new characters because it's topical at the time. But, the way that I think it tends to work is that, if you don't have pure confidence that you're able to play it as well as, you played whatever you mained before you switched over to that, then you're probably not going to want to incorporate that into your strategy. You're probably not going to want to play that on the big stage.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're already seeing
it throws another weird dynamic into it all.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing some interesting strategies come out with Wrecking Ball. I mean, I do think he lends himself well to some pretty unorthodox strategies. I mean, he's a very unorthodox hero, which, I mean, I like the fact that they're doing that from a casual player's perspective. I like that they're showing these very very strange, very unorthodox heroes. Like when Doom Fist came out, I was a big fan of that because it was like a fighting game character in a shooter.
Right.
And then now with Wrecking Ball. I mean, Wrecking Ball is just really interesting because he's entirely a physics-based character, and he does more damage based off of how fast he's going, which is really weird in a game that just doesn't really deal with physics-based damage and stuff like that. I mean, the game doesn't even have any fall damage, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
So
I always thought that was kind of weird.
I mean, the entire point of the game is you're playing as superheroes, like literal, like within the game world, like the people that you're playing as are superheroes. So it makes sense to me that they'd remove fall damage to kind of give you that superhero feel.
Oh yeah, no, and framing it like that, I get it, but like I guess what doesn't make sense to me is like when I compare it to other games where that should also be the case, but it's so clearly not.
Right.
Like Witcher 3. Like in Witcher 3, if you fall off like a dining room table, like you're dead.
Oh, believe me, I modded that the fuck out the second I found out there was a mod to remove that.
Yeah.
I also
it was just like the dumbest thing. It's like be a superhuman, fall off a table and die.
I also got the mod that makes it so you're less likely to accidentally roll down the stairs.
Oh yeah.
Because that was like the weirdest thing to me. When you'd just be casually walking down the stairs, and all of a sudden Geralt's like, check out my somersault.
Right. But no, I mean, in general, I think the outlook of esports when it comes to like the battle royale, franchises, it's not one that's, in my opinion, kind of headed downhill. It's just that they have to quickly decide, what it is and get it out there in a way that makes sense. They can't be naive enough to think that just the popularity of it right now itself, is going to carry the success of it through esports, because if they don't pay, good enough attention to it, then, they probably shouldn't expect it to live for that much longer as an esport. I tend to think of Overwatch when I say that.
You're right. And I think kind of in the same vein as the conversation we had on our first episode. I mean, we're in the Wild West of PUBG or of Battle Royale right now, but I think we're starting to come to the end. We're starting to come to the end of the Wild West of Battle Royale.
Yeah. I can see that too, because there's definitely more eyes on it. It's seeming to get like more controlled.
I absolutely agree.
Hey, we've got
calculated.
We've got a read in here now.
I was here the whole time. I was just, you guys had such great points that I didn't want to interrupt at all. It's definitely not because I was playing in a playoff match in an RD2L league, in an amateur video game league. Hashtag esports, hashtag forever.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, It's definitely I guess to get you kind of speed. We're kind of on the topic of battle royales as an esport and kind of where that's heading.
Oh, because the infamous fucking
yes, the grenade incident, which we covered a little bit, but I think there wasn't a whole lot. Like I was saying earlier, I was kind of disappointed because I'd gotten all hyped up about that, and I was about ready to run in here with it as my smoking gun to say, see, I'm right, PUBG's not ready to be an esport. And I ended up having to eat my words.
Yeah.
But it was it's definitely, I think it's a springboard into an interesting conversation just about battle royale as an esport format. And as I was just saying, we're kind of like in the wild west of battle royale right now, but I think we're coming to the end. The Pinkertons are showing up and they're taking the Cowboys in, so to speak.
I believe
that was a terrible analogy. I'm sorry. I feel like it needs to
reel them Cowboys right in.
As I was saying that, I was like, Jeremy, shut up.
No, I get it. I weirdly understood it. But yeah, no, it just needs to be, pretty measured if they're going to want to, have this, keep its longevity over time. The popularity itself can't, just make a game an esport, without careful attention to the way that it's all presented and altered to make sure that, everything stays afloat. You know what I mean? Like this is going to work as well as the event itself is going to work.
I mean, just look at Overwatch. I mean, that game was riding all sorts of highs. I mean, just a huge spike in popularity. A ton of money was being thrown at it as an esport. And I'm not saying it's unsuccessful, but it's definitely had kind of like a slow start in the esports scene. It's kind of starting to pick up now, but it did not catch on right away like a lot of people thought it would. So you're exactly right, I think. Popularity.
It's funny, we were
actually... and going off of that, they it's funny because Mark Cuban, the guy who owns the Dallas Mavericks, he's a billionaire. He's into sports teams, and he was one of the big investors on Shark Tank and stuff like that. Some guy you would not even at all associate with video games. He even on live TV said that Overwatch League is something that he felt is coming to a slow death, as an esport. And it's like,
and I think
that caught my attention.
I think that has a lot to do with the way that they're handling Overwatch's esports. They're trying to make it a very serious event. They're trying to rein people in. They're trying to prevent the competitors' personalities from shining through. I remember there's an infamous clip from, it must have been a few months back, of a guy. He had just made a big play, and he put on these goofy 2017 sunglasses, and within seconds, a staff from the event had come over, tapped him on the shoulder, and taken his sunglasses away. No, it's just one of those things. They're trying to crack down. They're trying to. I mean, I get it. They want esports to be this this serious, respectable thing. But this is the thing.
Well, and specifically related to that, they I think that what I've heard as an explanation as to why they're so they're back down mode on Overwatch, specifically on the players of Overwatch in that league, is because they're trying to secure a deal with Disney to actually air it on their channel. So this would be the first Overwatch. I mean, this would be the first esports league that actually went full cable television, at least backed by Disney for sure. And in order to get that deal, they knew that they needed to be super PG-13, and they didn't want to have it come off as non-professional in any way. So, I mean, on that, I guess I can kind of get it. If they were just trying to be super cautious to secure that deal with Disney, but at the same time, it's you're not going to really be speaking to your core base by trying to like stifle people from being themselves, and all
Right.
these really like inorganic moves that they're making, with the event itself, like trying to have like on stage cheerleaders and shit. It's just like, I don't think you know what this is. Like, I don't think you know who you're like trying to appeal to. Like, do you understand your demographic or what? Like, you guys need to figure out what you are before Mark Cuban ends up being right. Like, you know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of people, or I say a lot of gamers, I think, have this sort of gut reaction. They want games to be like this big mainstream thing. They want to see like esports on like ESPN, and they want it to be, kind of a part. But I think really, if you look at like gaming and gaming culture, it's still like very separate, I think, from like the popular culture and like how it's run and how it feels. I mean, there's definitely a lot more memeing than fucking, cheerleaders and burger ads and Budweiser and like, you know what I mean? It's like they're still very, I mean, we're starting to see more and more of this sort of world sort of blending together, but still I think the hardcore gaming culture, I think, is still very separate from that. And so when they try to shoehorn things in, like try to take it into a more public way, I think it does a lot, I think, for bringing in people who aren't hardcore gamers, and maybe even opening it up to people who are not kind of gamers at all. I mean, because that's something I can't really speak to, but it might very well be possible. But it definitely is not resonating with the hardcore audience.
See, the only thing I was able to take away from that now is I didn't realize I wanted this until you said it, but now I really want for halftime shows in esports, I want meme leaders.
You want what?
Meme leaders instead of cheerleaders.
I thought that was a play on team leaders. Like you just have a meme leader.
like meme captains.
Meme captains, yeah. He just like goes around just memeing the shit out of everybody to keep up morale.
Dude, I watch it.
There should be, honestly, okay, so like real talk, it would be great if like ESPN hired like a designated team of memers to like find shit in like during the event, like crazy stuff, and to make memes out of it. It sounds like very corporate, but if you went to the source, because those memes are going to get made.
Yeah.
Actually, me and Derek were having this conversation the other day, and at this point we're getting way off topic, but I want to have this conversation anyway. We were talking about like corporate memes and how they just don't work. They just feel really soulless.
Well, once memes go mainstream, you're essentially like pronouncing it dead. Like once it really takes off beyond the point of I guess I would say like, it starts getting overused, and people who would or would not identify as normies, would just like constantly say it. Like that's where it's probably gone.
The meme's dead, yeah,
I would not want corporate memes. I've seen like an insurance commercial actually, like not even a few weeks ago, where they tried to like bank in on old like 2013 format memes, where it's like just the pictures with the captions or whatnot.
What are you talking about? Those are vintage now.
Those are vintage memes, yeah, and they're like just now getting around to it because they think it's still topical, and I'm just like, like what the fuck?
Welcome to the Not Important Gaming Podcast, where we don't talk about games here, we talk about memes.
I mean, but really, I think memes are almost kind of synonymous with games these days.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
I'm just saying. Maybe not like games as a whole, but yeah.
I know, I gotcha.
Meme culture, game culture. There's a huge overlap.
There is overlap. You're right. But no, it's just very to get back. Actually, I don't know. There's a whole lot else we can talk about. PUBG and
I have my thing. It's pretty open, or pretty straightforward and pretty simple.
Okay.
I don't know if you had a chance to look at the thing I sent you. Let me throw it in the chat.
I was at least I looked over it a little bit. I got the basics. I'm gonna update them.
Have you were you aware of the controversy at all?
No, this was news to me.
Okay, well, it seems like very simple and plain on the out front, but oh shoot, nope, that's what I wanted to do. I'm gonna do this. Second, I'm gonna get an actual. Where the heck am I looking?
Yeah, I've got the title updated now. And so we're jumping into your topic, Reed.
Okay, I'm posting it in general right now. And I'll give you a second to kind of just take a quick peek at it, Derek. But as a just kind of a summary, this might seem like some like Hollywood access type shit.
This gives me a very big, like he likes it Hollywood access vibe.
This is TMZ.
Yes.
But there's something behind it that I kind of want to talk into, and that's also the media and how they kind of react to different stories. So this story came out. There's a YouTube professional gamer called FaZe. He was well known not only for being a huge professional gamer and whatnot, but also for dating what a lot of people titled as the world's sexiest weather girl.
To clarify, his name is not FaZe. He's part of Team FaZe. His screen name is Censor.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I misspoke. Yeah, his name's Censor. But he's a very popular gamer. He's very talented. But he's dating, and I don't mean this in any demeaning way, but just an absolute gorgeous woman, and he was very well known for that. But he came out recently and he said that he was going to break up with her. And let me see if I can find the exact statement. This is me being prepared. But basically, he said that he wanted to focus on gaming and his career, and that because he was doing that, he wouldn't be able to give her the attention that she deserved. And that now that she was moved away, she was working in Mexico City, it was going to be difficult for him to give her that attention. And this isn't about like their relationship or whatnot. It's more, the reason why I'm bringing up the story is because of the reaction to the story coming out. A lot of people are saying like, YouTuber dumps model girlfriend to play video games. And a lot of people look at her and they're like, what? How could you dump her? She's like so hot, like that you're crazy. Or oh my gosh, kids these days so caught up in video games they can't even have a relationship. And there's like some really good. There's some really interesting tweets that kind of were along that point. But if you take away some of the elements of this, I think the whole dynamic shifts. If instead of him being like a professional video game player, like what if he was a professional soccer player or someone like that who is in a relationship and he's like, hey, I want to focus on my career, and so I don't have time to focus on that. And I think that suddenly changes a lot of things. And so a lot of people are coming at him as if he's like sort of like this loser, but really when this is your job and whatnot, making that decision to focus on your career is very reasonable. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because of how we still have this stigma associated with games and people who play games and whatnot. And even people from like gaming culture, I think also they were reacting in a negative way. When I think like you can never know, like relationship wise, that's like a separate deal. And you can never know kind of how things are, but
I think anybody that's looking at this through a clear lens would understand his logic in this, because like, okay, sure, she's, the world's hottest weather girl or whatever, like, all right. But, if he, like, let's take the most extreme version of this, like, and take it the opposite way. What if he, like, dumped his like career with FaZe and like, in esports to be, out of work and to just be with her, like, best case scenario, she like tolerates the fact that he's just kind of like a normal guy anymore and that he's not like notable. I don't know their relationship, and I would like hate to assume anything shallow of her, but like typically girls that have a lot like going for them like that, and she's already a notable person, she has like a pretty big career in what she does. she already comes from, like, I would imagine a standpoint of like, okay, well, he has to be showing that he has like something that he's going for as well. Like he has something like going for him, you know. He's not just kind of like trying to wing it, you know, or whatever. Now, you know, again, who knows their relationship, but like when it comes down to it, I think, okay, if he left his career where he's making all this money and he's like doing what he loves to just be with her, that would be the wrong decision any way you dice it. Because and
it depends. I mean, maybe if he wants to retire. I mean, there's like a lot of other factors, but you know, it's just like, I mean, it's like it's you doing what you love. You know what I mean? Like to throw that away,
you know, it's already a very questionable decision. Doing it, you know, for a relationship, I guess, you know, it can be, you know, it can be a thing that people can decide to do. I mean, I know people personally who've put, you know, their career, their professional career on hold, you know, for somebody else in a relationship. But it's like, ultimately, you know, it made sense to me as to why he realized, you know, all factors considered, that, you know, not being with her and pursuing his career would make the most sense. Like, he has to do for him at the end of the day.
Yep. Here's an example of one of the tweets. Brad Decay said, "Yes, Call of Duty should come before personal relationships, ... And it's like, I guess it also ties into kind of, you talked about hardcore gaming culture or like meme culture or whatnot, but I think there's this whole bubble around like new media and how, like, I don't think a lot of people quite are treat. I mean, they see it and they don't understand that in a lot of ways it's a lot of the same things as, like, you know, traditional careers and traditional work, and that the Twitch streamers are like the TV stars. The Twitch streamers of today are like the TV stars of yesterday. You know, it's like, even though a lot of things are different and there's not a lot of times a camera crew or makeup or all this production, that those jobs, those careers are very, very similar. I mean, you're entertaining tens of thousands, if not millions of people, you know, on a regular basis, and putting in time and a lot of work. It's not something that people just hop on and just play video games and, you know, do that. These are actual, like, careers and things. I mean, same thing with YouTubers, any like professional esports, anybody who does any sort of like digital work, you know, in sort of like the new media area.
Yeah, and that's something I was having a conversation with a family member earlier, after you brought the topic up to me. I was talking to a family member about it. When I initially brought that up, she had a very, like, you know, negative, like, oh, you know, he dumped this really hot girl to play games, and oh, that's it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, at that level, you're not just playing games. And I remember she asked, she was like, so I mean, you could do that. I was like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah,
I am absolutely not at that level. The people that are competing at that level, that's their job. They make, like, ridiculous amounts of money to play that, and it absolutely makes sense that somebody would.
Well, to like throw a bit of reality into it all, like, okay, if you're making the kind of money and you're the kind of status symbol that he is within any community, honestly, within any industry, you make the kind of money that he makes, you become as notable as he is, he's going to be able to, like, that's not going to be the last hot girl he's going to have a chance with. Like, let's be real. You know what I mean?
Not
so
that
it's like
hotness should be something that dominates a
relationship. Not even that it should be a metric. Absolutely, yeah. But that's just to say that, like, you can fool these people's arguments, like, so easily, you know?
Yeah, and to kind of ground the conversation. I mean, to put it sort of into perspective, this person is sort of like a Tom Brady or he's a professional. I don't want to say, maybe, like, I don't know how good he is exactly, but, or like, he's like a Ronaldo. He's like playing at a high professional tier level, and he's well known.
At least his team is a very very well known, very high tier team. Yes.
And so when people say, like, oh, well, you know, I'm going international later this year to spectate, and they're like, oh, are you going to play in the tournament? And I'm like, are you kidding me? And it's like, you know, the people think that, oh, just because you play games means you can play, like, in this tournament. And it's like, no, the level of difference, the difference of skill level and the amount of work that these people put in. It's literally the difference between like a high school quarterback and a professional NFL football player, or a major league baseball or basketball player, or any professional sport. It takes years and years and years and hundreds of thousands of hours of practice and exercise and preparation to get good at that level. So
you're playing at a different caliber, absolutely.
I mean, we're here playing checkers and they're playing chess. So.
I mean, if he was a sports celebrity, and it's like, oh, a sports celebrity broke up so that he could focus on his career, that wouldn't even make news.
Which is, I think, like the gist of like, you know, the topic of like kind of highlighting the almost the hypocrisy in it, you know, because people who are uninitiated to esports in general, or to like the fact that gaming has actually become mainstream and people are actually making careers out of it, that are no different than just any other career in the entertainment industry. Like when YouTube became big and people were vlogging their lives on it, people were saying the same things about it. And then like 10 years later, we're looking at these YouTube stars as not like, you know, oh, you like video yourself, that's cute, you know, like they look at them as like respectable, like entertainment, like public figures, you know what I mean? But like esports is and like making a career in gaming is still kind of in that transitory phase where they're trying to like get it to not be a social taboo, the idea of people, you know, making careers out of it. So like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like for the uninitiated, it's easy for them to look at it and say, oh, they would trade you know, his really hot girlfriend or a relationship for Call of Duty, ... It's like, well, you could frame it whatever way you want, but like the fact of the matter is that like this is an actual career. You would not be saying that same sentence, but replacing like a video game, you know, esport guy with like an electrical engineer. You wouldn't say, oh, you're going to trade in your relationship for being an electrical engineer, you know, ... You know,
I know. Like, I was going to say, like, in an alternate universe somewhere, this guy just dumped his girlfriend to play football, and in this alternate universe, oh, you just dumped this beautiful girl to go throw a ball around. All right,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you were saying, nobody would even bat an eye if a professional football player had done the same thing. Not gonna lie, Reed, this is actually like a hard sell for me, and this is actually a surprisingly interesting topic.
Yeah, no, I saw it and it immediately resonated with me. I do have a couple other small like news stories I just wanted to kind of ding on too and maybe get your feedback.
Okay, yeah, we can. I don't have anything prepared on screen for it, but we can at least.
No. Yeah, these are just kind of little, just other kind of one-offs. One of the lead creators at League of Legends tweeted out, should we build an MMO, yay or nay? And it fucking blew up. A shit ton of people retweeted. The entire sort of League community was kind of exploding.
Yes.
And I wanted to give my just dues to League. You know, I'm a big Dota fan, but I also definitely respect the people behind that. There's definitely a great community over there. I think one thing that Riot has done really well is they've built up really good lore for a lot of their champions, and that might even play into this. So I was going to touch on that. Let's see. And then
well, let's go with that one. We'll start with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, League of Legends MMO. I mean, we've talked about MMOs a couple times, whether or not they're dead or not. But
yeah, it's a little outside my wheelhouse. In terms of like, I mean, you know me. I've never been good at MOBAs. But I don't know. It's a successful game. I think it would do well. But it's certainly, at least I think there's probably a decent amount of overlap between MOBA players and MMO players, because a lot of the same skill sets carry over, where it's a lot of managing cooldowns, Yeah. So I can at least see. I can see the demand. I would have to see what their concept is before I can really weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't even like an announcement or anything. It's literally just one guy putting one question, and he might not even been serious. He might have just like thrown that up there, and it just blew up. But
yeah, if it were an even idea, I mean, honestly, I'm the last person to be weighing in on that topic. Since, I mean, like I said, it's just so far outside of my wheelhouse. I mean, I haven't played MMOs in forever. I'm after my Warcraft addiction, I pretty much swore off MMOs.
Yeah, I've never played an MMO. I've always had a personal policy to not, just due to my proclivity to being addicted to video games as a whole already.
MMOs will absolutely like eat your soul. I remember,
like coming from somebody who actually has played MMOs, I think it's actually a bad decision. I really do.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I know how MMOs operate. I know the space that they're in right now and that they used to be, and it's only been in a pretty I don't want to say like a fast downhill spiral, but it's been coming for some time. It's been a steady slope down, and I don't see it really coming back. Not to say that there's not room for an MMO to thrive today if done very well, but I cannot personally think of one MMO that has kind of broken through to the point that I would feel that League would want their name to kind of be signed off on. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. I tend to think of it in terms of investing. I mean, you're kind of taking a really high risk that it might fail, like most other MMOs in the current market will. And what's going to be the return? Best case scenario, you're going to get a game that's probably still short of that of League. So I don't know. On that note, I feel like the real time for MMOs, their prime has kind of been, it's done and gone. But I mean, if done correctly, maybe there's room for it. I'm very skeptical of that.
No, I agree. I mean, if you ask a World of Warcraft fan, I mean, they'll tell you Warcraft has been declining since the Burning Crusade. So it's definitely I think a waning market, like you're saying. I mean, there are always going to be people who want to play MMOs. I don't think MMOs are ever going to fair to die, but when you put it that way, it does make sense that it definitely seems like making a League MMO would be more risk than it's worth.
Yeah, my thought is I feel like this is mostly just a lot of fluff. I don't think that they're gonna do that. I mean, because the amount of investment, first of all, it takes to get up and do that is a huge amount. But also, I feel like they would be kind of cannibalizing their own audience. Why? Because I mean, if it was a League-based MMO, it's not like it's really gonna pull in a lot of new people. Your probably biggest audience would be people who already are in the sort of League ecosystem.
Right.
And if they're playing a MOBA, they're not playing League, and so it's you're still getting their money, but you're also committing resources to develop a project that is going to give you money that you would have gotten already from another vector. So
and MOBAs and MMOs are they have pretty stark contrast between them, in terms of what they are as a genre, and you're kind of it's almost like you're trying to initiate your audience of MOBA fans into a completely different genre. That is probably not going to be a good idea. It's probably not going to work unless it's a pretty smooth transition. But how do you get from MOBA to MMO without it being a pretty rough initiation for those people? They're just going to be they're going to play it day one hypothetically and just be this doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, honestly,
best case scenario it does, and then they still have to deal with the fact that the only successful long-term MMOs that well, I shouldn't say that, but most of them are a paid system. You have to it's a sub system where you pay $12-15 a month in order to keep a constant stream of revenue going into the developers so that they can make quality and quantity content over time, and that the game doesn't just become really flat and dull like a lot of free to play MMOs end up becoming. So it's you're also taking a big core aspect to what League fans already deal with right now, which is having a free MOBA game and then transitioning into like a paid monthly tier, if that makes sense. Like it's changing way too much to be successful to their fans, I think.
Right. That all makes sense. Honestly, I think if they were smart rather than doing an MMO, I think they'd have better luck with making a single player RPG in that universe.
I think so too. Yeah.
Something that's a little more story rich, something they can expand on the lore, as opposed to MMO, which isn't going to. I mean, this is the thing. MMOs have lore. MMOs have deep lore, but the average player isn't going to get that. But I think a single player, you're not going to be competing with. You're not going to be competing for playtime between that and League itself. It's going to attract an audience that maybe doesn't play League but does want to play a story-rich RPG. I just feel like that would be a safer and more lucrative bet than an MMO, just in general.
Yeah, so that was just one story. I just had two more, I think, that I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
One is that Jay Pinkerton. You may or may not recognize the name. He was one of the main writers. He was the writer for Portal 2, one of the writers for Team Fortress 2, and he was also a writer for Left 4 Dead. He had left Valve a while back. I'm not sure if it was a year ago or if it was just several months ago, maybe 2 years ago. But it appears that he has returned to Valve, according to Valve's staff webpage. Yeah.
And
as to what that might mean, who knows?
Well, this is shortly after another comment. I can't remember who said it, but somebody at Valve had made a comment. Since it's the kind of the common term phrase right now that Valve doesn't make games anymore. And somebody high up in Valve, and I can't for the life of me who it was. The only thing I know for sure is it wasn't Gaben. Had said, no, yeah, we do still make games. So
they just don't get released.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it makes you wonder, especially between that and the fact that Valve has pretty much confirmed that they're working on 3 VR titles right now.
Oh, so excited!
I know. I don't know what they're going to be, but I already know they're going to be great.
Made for VR games, PogChamp.
Man.
Yep.
I'm so ready for what is it, Discworld?
Who knows?
Or not Discworld. That really awful Valve disc game. I can't remember the name.
Anyway, they are making Artifact, so maybe he just came back to write descriptions for Artifact cards, but Artifact is their trading card game.
Ricochet. That was the name of the game.
Oh, Ricochet. And then the other bit of news. I mean, unless Derek, you had anything you wanted to comment about that?
No, you're good. I was just kind of listening in.
Yeah. Last bit of news is that Fallout 76 beta has been announced that it's going to launch in October. You can get in on the beta pre-ordering.
I'm probably not going to get involved in the beta myself, but I am going to be watching it.
I'll probably keep my eyes on it too. I don't think I'll end up pre-ordering.
It's something I'm very, very nervous about.
Yeah. I have a very set policy about pre-ordering games. Unless I know for sure a game is going to be good. I don't think they've shown enough about Fallout 76 to really give a good picture of what it's going to be like. I think it's not going to be quite maybe what people think it's going to be, but more, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Besides, betas are always kind of rough. They're not, it's like an incomplete game. Sometimes betas are fun, especially when they're free. But they kind of act as like a demo for a game.
Right.
Yeah. I will say though, you get that special edition, you get that cool ass power armor helmet.
It's certainly interesting. I'm going to keep my eye on it, but it's one of those things that I'm very nervous about. I don't know how it's going to turn out. But it's certainly interesting. All right. We want to move on to our last topic then.
Oh, sure.
Our last topic is No Man's Sky in the next update. It's actually a big piece of information. No Man's Sky functionally overnight had turned their entire, like, the way people viewed it around. They had basically, we've all seen the reviews. They were,
Right. Atrocious.
Yeah, atrocious.
At best.
People were absolutely pissed about the game. And for very good reason.
Yeah, complete. Yeah.
With this new update, we've actually seen at least on Steam, reviews go from a very negative to mostly positive, functionally overnight.
Yeah.
And we actually, Derek, you ended up playing a decent amount of, at least a few hours of the next update. So I think we'll have you kind of lead us off with your experience with it, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so I got into it. I want to say, actually, because you were the one that turned me on to the update. I had no clue that No Man's Sky was, like, even still alive, or still kicking. You were just like, oh, look, it's leg twitched. Go check that out. So I was like, okay, well, so I installed the game again and got into the update. After seeing, a lot of the patch notes, I want to say it was last Tuesday when they released the next update. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so there was quite a bit to the game. Basically, they wanted to show that I think they were waiting quite a while to do any big updates since the last one, where I think they added in like the new like hover car systems or whatever that you have, which I wasn't there for that one, so I didn't really get that update. But there's definitely been quite a bit in this update, in the next update. And most of it is trying to fulfill the promises that they brought in initially when the game launched that, they did deliver on. So, just kind of like, to preface this, like, I don't feel that the next update is going to like fully redeem the game's reputation as a whole. But like Hello Games has definitely shown a willingness to like persevere through the bad press and like continue trying to make true on the promises and shortcomings that the game brought, at launch 2 years back. So, just on that note, I mean, it could be worse. It could be worse. But, the game overall, like since the next update has recovered a fair bit, with, like you said, a lot of positive reviews on Steam and such. And, the implementations are definitely a move in the right direction. So I guess we'll see where they take it from here. But
I have a question. You played No Man's Sky before the update?
Yeah, I played it initially when it came out. Actually, I was one of the people that bought it when it came out, and then was just like really disappointed like 2 days into it, and was just like, oh well, yeah, fuck this, because that was like when 95% roughly of the player base just left the game in the first week. It's a massive letdown, and I got to experience that firsthand. And it's and I think the thing that I've learned about this next update and playing it is that a lot of the issues are still there. A lot of the core issues are still there, which is why I say that like it's not where it needs to be yet.
It still looks like there's nothing to do.
They
Except
just
now
seem to
you
be
can
paying
do
attention
nothing.
now.
Yeah.
You do
I
nothing
mean, it
with
just
friends.
seems like now you can do nothing with friends, and you can do nothing in a third-person perspective, and you can do nothing in a base wherever you want.
Well, so one of the biggest like core issues, honestly, like outside of the false advertising from the devs, obviously, was and is the constant grind for resources to maintain and upkeep your like multi-tools and your shift fuel thrusters and your life support systems like the weather shields and stuff for your suit. The next update did tackle that issue a bit by simplifying the resource system, and it was it made it so that like the number of required materials that you needed at any given point is a bit easier to get. It still feels like a chore, that like the chore that it was before, though, like for the most part, especially when you consider that your systems continue to wear down over time, regardless of whether you're moving or standing still or like using them or not. So it's like you're in a constant chase for materials, and it's just, I feel like it detracts from the rest of all the other things that they're trying to get you to explore within the game, right?
See,
like all the other like systems.
Yeah, that
if
sounds,
that makes sense.
That sounds really stressful to me. Coming from a guy who likes really stressful games, it sounds really stressful and not in a fun way.
Well, and listen, like I can understand that a number of people actually enjoy going through a grind like this, where like for them it feels rewarding in and of itself to mostly focus on like a progressive task, like constantly managing your resources. But like when you spend that much time essentially doing damage control on your systems and on your tools, like it takes away from the time you get to spend focusing on like the other aspects of the game that they intended for you to explore, you know? And like that's where like the resource or like the inventory / like resource management system just kind of did not actually get an overhaul, and that's why I still feel like it's a fundamental problem with the game. They need to, so that you do not spend. I actually timed it because this was such an issue. I timed it. I like took the plasma gun that you like shoot into like all the rocks to like gather, you know, certain like minerals and stuff like into your inventory. I had it completely full, completely charged, and I just shot at this rock for as long as I could while it was like wearing out. It like overheats and you have to like wait for it to, obviously come back, and then you do it again. Within 3 minutes of using it, it was already completely depleted, and I had to go like scounge, couple, miles out to go try to repair it, to get the resources, to gather the resources to repair it. And it's just like
it'd be cool if there's like a progression system that maybe at the beginning it's kind of a grind like that, but the whole point is that you go, maybe like you collect resources to get you stuff that instead of it burning out in like 3 minutes, it burns out in like an hour. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
Or like maybe you use materials to build an auto gatherer, so it's like it just makes the whole resource gather process a little bit better. That I think would be a lot better than just a constant grind.
And I have no problem with the way that they set up the resource system in the game. I think that's actually done well. But like you said, it's just they just need this to lengthen the time to which those systems degrade. Like not 3 minutes, make it like 25 minutes. You know what I mean? Like something somewhat reasonable. You should just, at the current state in the game and the way that it was before, so they didn't fix it, you are always chasing resources. You're not out exploring as much as you would like to. You're not building and crafting as much as you'd like to. But to make matters worse, like the inventory system has been improved a little bit, but like I still damn near ran out of room for more materials like an hour or two into playing last week. Yep. When I downloaded the next update. But I mean, however, they did create a new mode where they turned off like every single resource and survival mechanic in the game, which just allows you to explore the galaxy completely like unimpeded.
But that's like playing Minecraft in creative mode. It's like, you can build a castle, but what's the point?
Yeah,
they like work for it.
They just lack a middle option for players who like want a challenge without like a silly level of resource demands.
And I mean, we'll go back to shitting on the game. There's plenty more to talk about this topic, but I at least want to like touch on some of the improvements to the game.
I just thought I'd get all the shit talking out first.
Oh, we've got some more, and I definitely want to come back to shit talking. But like one of the big things is they talked about like or that I saw was they had this huge graphical overhaul for the game. And like the game is really gorgeous from all the screenshots that I see now, as opposed to
third person now.
Yeah, it's third person now, which I know a lot of people aren't super happy about. But
I'm indifferent.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You're either going to be somebody who doesn't care about it, in which case, I mean, it's nice to see your customizable character now, or you're going to be somebody who's upset by it, which I guess I don't really get why you'd be upset by it, because it's not like the game needed to be in first person.
Right.
But I mean, just the way they handled the graphical overhaul and the way that the worlds render now, because it used to be you would drop on a planet and the planet was just this vast wasteland. Didn't matter what kind of planet it was. it was just this big empty field with creatures in it. But the new overhaul they did, like it's got actual mountains, it's got actual canyons. You can land anywhere on any planet and like see like these really interesting terrains that you weren't able to see before.
Yeah.
Which I thought was...
Speaking of the crafting system with your friends, you can craft your base anywhere on the planet.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
And that actually leads me to another one of the big updates, big changes with the next update, which is the freighters that you can buy. These massive spaceships that you were previously only able to see in like space battles in the game. You can actually buy one of those now, and you can create a base in that freighter and fly around with your base. You don't have to make a whole ton of bases on every planet. You can just have a freighter that you fly to each planet, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you drop them into orbit, and then you can get in your smaller ship to land on planets.
Have you played it, Jeremy?
I have not played it, but I've watched a decent amount on it. I watched the one I think was the most informative for me was Clean Prince Gaming's essay that they made on it, where he talked a lot about it, and that's where I'm getting most of my information from when I'm talking about this. But it's just very interesting, and I don't know that I'm sold on the game yet, especially hearing Derek's take on the game and what's happened with it. But it's definitely going in the right direction. I don't know, because there's a lot of people who are apologizing for the game now in reviews. They're saying, well, the game wasn't as bad. It wasn't as bad as people say. No, the game was as bad as people said it was, and it worse. The game earned every negative review it got.
I will say that, kind of like going back to that bit that I said at the beginning.
Yeah.
If they can clean up the grindiness to the resource management system, and maybe do something more with the inventory to allow you more slots, I think that will be at this point, that would be the bulk of all of my negative criticisms, off to the game. That would be, I would be cool with just kind of saying that it was a good game now. Because for all intents and purposes, I mean, everything else that they've done, the stuff that you're talking about with the freighters and the all the UI changes, the new crafting system, the bases, the new missions, all of this stuff, it has definitely taken the game in a better direction. And if they continue to make updates like this, then I think it does have a positive outlook, and maybe they can redeem themselves off of all the bad press and actually get it back to the game that they wanted it to be initially. But 2 years ago, it's just that the constant chase for resources and stuff, I feel like that is the game. That's how bad it is. I feel like that is the pure focus of the game, is just trying to keep your weather shields up and to keep fuel in your ship. When you take off, you honestly, you get into your ship and you just press the takeoff button, you have already depleted a third of your fuel, and to get that much fuel back in terms of resources takes a lot longer than the second it took for you to press that button. You know what I mean? You're constantly chasing materials rather than exploring the better parts of the game that they wanted you to see. And that's the only real gripe I have with it right now, is that it just seems like that balance is off.
Which seems like that's a relatively easy fix. I mean, far be it for me to act like I'm some master game dev and I know how to fix every problem. That just seems like it's one of those things where it would be very easy to extend the usefulness of your mining laser to
that can't be
fuel consumed.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that can't be a hard thing from a development standpoint, just to lengthen the period of time which something degrades. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah. Which makes you...
I would imagine that's a relatively simple thing. They just, well, and to kind of highlight that point, there's a couple different modes now that there weren't before. There's 3 different modes. I forgot what they're called, but it's like so there's like an easy mode to the game. There's like a kind of intermediate difficulty, and then there's like, I think, survival mode or something like that, which is like extreme. And the difference is being, you may already know this, Jeremy, from like looking at the patch notes, but the easy mode is like kind of what we already initially had with the game. From my understanding, like when the game first came out. Intermediate mode is like the problems that I'm talking about right now with like the resource management system, about how you're always chasing resources. They like upped the difficulty of that, so things wear down even faster. So it's like already like enough of an issue, but like if you want to play the game on like an even more challenging difficulty, like it's really going to kick you in the ass trying to do that. And then like survival difficulty, which is even worse than that, but you also permadeath your character. So it's like, you know, I definitely played it on easy because I was like, I'm not gonna deal with like all the shittiness of trying to make, you know, what's already, you know, a monotonous grind that much lengthier.
Right. Yeah. No, it doesn't seem like a game that lends itself well. At least not right now.
I want to give a. Go ahead.
I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, maybe this is a slight not entire non sequitur, but there's a YouTuber named Shammy, and he has done some pretty amazing videos on No Man's Sky, especially with the last big update that they did a lot of stuff for the story, which you know, we're not going to spoil anything. You know, they did add to the No Man's Sky long after it came out, and it has a long. And he kind of goes into depth with that. I am kind of sad because he said like, no more, this is it, I'm done. And then this announcement just came out, and he's already said that no, he won't make another video on it. But he has a really good, I think, analysis of the state of No Man's Sky pre-next patch, especially when it comes to the single player.
To be fair, he puts out an update like once every 2 years, or a new video once every 2 years. So
yeah. But I encourage anybody, if anybody has any free time, to go and check those out, because not only do they break down the game really well, they're also fucking hilarious. He's one of my favorite YouTubers, and everything he makes is gold.
I agree with that. But I guess one of the other big things, one of the other big complaints I've been hearing about No Man's Sky is the level of... Because it's always been a buggy game. It's always been a glitchy game. And I guess, I mean, they're pushing the engine to its limits now with this new update, which is a... Oh yeah,
I took a picture of myself climbing an invisible ladder last week.
It's a blessing and a curse, because it means that the game is gorgeous. It's more beautiful than it's ever been, but it also means that you've got a whole slew of new problems. You've got pop-in problems, you've got rendering problems, you've got, like you said, invisible ladders, all these things all of these issues that the game already had beforehand, you know, exacerbated tenfold, because now it's trying to render more complex stuff, it's trying to process more complex terrain,
right.
AI, I mean, everything. They've improved the game quite a bit, and unfortunately, in that effort to improve the game, it's like they've taken one step forward, 2 steps back in terms of bugs.
I will say that initially, when I played it last week, when I like reinstalled the game and got into it for the first time, since 2016. It was very buggy. I mean, I could not walk on the planet for like 15 seconds without just, getting completely stalled out. And like hearing these sounds, it almost made it seem like my console was just going to crash. Like literally it was just going to crash. And it was happening like every 15, 20 seconds. But I'm not sure if there's been a hot fix since then. But when I was playing it just yesterday, for like an hour or two, there was none of that anymore. So I don't know.
I do remember when, like I said, I watched the essay that was done by Clean Prince Game, and he talked about how he actually during when he first launched the game, after about 40 minutes, the game crashed. He started the game back up, and about 2 hours after that, the game crashed again. But after that, he didn't have much problems. But it's just one of those things where just because he doesn't have problems, I mean, you have to think about just those two problems. How many other people are having issues with crashing? Right. Which, I mean, you want to talk about one of the worst things you can possibly have happen to your game. It's crashing problems. Mm-hmm. That is the quickest way to get someone to uninstall your game.
Oh, so you guys didn't play vanilla No Man's Sky?
No.
Holy shit! The crashing was so fucking awful. That was literally the highlight of like the frustrations of the game. It really was. Like, consider all the other like criticisms that were offered to the game, like when it first dropped. That was the worst part about it. It was not uncommon. In fact, it almost happened to everybody that the game would crash every like 20 minutes, like almost on cue. Every 20 minutes, it's just the game would just fucking crash for
See, it's
everybody.
funny
It didn't
because
matter if you
I
were
feel
on
like
PC
that
or
would be
PS4,
I feel like that would be the best part when the game crashes. You go, oh, thank God, I don't have to play this garbage anymore.
And it went on for like a whole week. Yeah, well, it probably went on for longer than that, but I didn't play it longer than that week. So like I don't know if it stayed consistent. But yeah, it was. They didn't like, try to give it a quick hot fix. In the next couple of days, it was just constant crashing for everybody throughout that whole week. Like, I remember I was watching one streamer who managed to play for like an hour or two completely unimpeded, and like her chat was just going nuts. Mm-hmm. That like she was actually able to not have that crash happen to her like as often as happened to everybody else. So that was kind of funny. But it definitely spoke to like the start of the game and how sloppy things were. They're not out of the woods yet. I think the next update, though, is just kind of showing a glimpse of them attempting to correct the wrongs on their part. Since the game did launch 2 years ago, they're making up for lost time. They're trying to get the game back.
Just as much time.
Okay, I'm back.
Part of me actually, like, I feel...
Sorry,
man,
guys.
Jeremy and I were talking about this actually last week. Like, it's really hard to feel bad for, a studio that just shit all over, their promises and all over their customers, with those, empty promises that they made before. But right now, I can't help but feel a little sympathy for them, because it's like, you see that they're desperately, like, they realized their mistake from back then, and like, they're really trying to correct it. Like, they're not taking a half-assed attempt at trying to do it. They're like going full out, and like, so instead of trying to focus on a new project and get away from the bad PR of No Man's Sky, like, the name itself is tainted, and that's what like people have to realize. Like, that name is always going to be tainted for a certain group of individuals who just have chosen to not ever give that game like a second chance, and that's quite a fair amount of people, and for good reason, But like, when something is tainted, like, you could just pull a Square Enix and just be like, yeah, let's just rename it, to like try to get away from like the bad PR that's associated with the name of it, like they did with Final Fantasy 13 Versus. They just called it Final Fantasy 15, waited a couple years, and then released it, and that was after like 9 years of development. But like, Hello Games was like, you know what? No, we're going to own up to our mistake. We're not going to make a, new IP or anything like that. We're going to keep trying to focus on this and make it right, to like get back in the good graces of, of our fans. And I don't know. I have to commend them for trying. Like, in the end, like, I have to commend them for actually like putting their best foot forward and actually trying to like do the game well to the point that they should have initially,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, we did just have a brief drop there for a second. I like lost the internet connection or something. It was really weird. But we're back online now. We're streaming again. But that is an interesting. That's interesting, and yes, we did have that conversation. It actually, I know this is tangentially related, but Ubisoft has kind of been doing the same thing lately. With games like Rainbow Six, For Honor, and Assassin's Creed. You know, they've had these games that, you know, they've been doing poorly for a while. I mean, Rainbow Six and For Honor, obviously, they had a ton of problems. And Rainbow Six to the point where, most people wrote it off as completely unplayable. And Assassin's Creed, you know, obviously it had problems where, you know, annualization problems that had driven it to a point where, you know, people just didn't want to play anymore because they already knew what they were going to get every time they started an Assassin's Creed game. It was going to be a buggy, formulaic piece of shit. But I feel like Ubisoft has put a ton of work into fixing these games, which is really strange to see, like, a big name developer like that, rather than try to, rather than abandon the game and just make a new one and say, we'll get them next time. They really took these games that a lot of people must have written off as, it's Ubisoft garbage, and turned it around and made some really, like, worthwhile games out of them. I know I was in that camp where, it must have been like 4 years ago, where I just straight said, I'm never buying a Ubisoft game again.
Yeah.
I remember telling myself the same thing.
But they've put in the work. Like, Rainbow Six is now one of my favorite games. Which is insane. How you can see, and obviously No Man's Sky doesn't have the budget that Ubisoft has, but I just think it really kind of shows that a developer who is willing to put in the effort to say yes, we fucked up, we made some mistakes, but here's what we're doing to fix it. I think it shows the goodwill of the consumers that they're willing to look past mistakes as long as a quality product is provided in return.
Yeah.
And
it was a pretty bold move because, bigger studios realize that if you can just deflect the issues and ignore the criticisms and just silently try to move on with something else, or move past it, that you can get away with it. EA with Battlefront 2 and like I said, with Square Enix and Final Fantasy 13 Versus, but they kind of, Hello Games had one of those moments where they just kind of bared their soul to their audience, and they were like, listen guys, like we're sorry for, the shortcomings of the game. We understand that it was our fault. We're gonna completely overhaul the game to try to get you guys the product that you bought, that you were promised, and it looks like it's working out well for them. It's not as there's not like a hive mind in the community right now to just keep shitting on them. People, like you said, were going on to Steam and giving them positive reviews, by and large, and now they're starting to recover some of the damage.
This is the thing, I'm kind of two minds about that, because on one hand, I'm all for people, coming in and saying, hey, look, this isn't the game that it used to be. This is a much better game than it used to be. But at the same time, you've got so many people who are trying to, who are trying to whitewash the history of the game and trying to pretend like all the shitty things that they did. It wasn't that bad.
It's okay now, just because they're trying to make it right.
It doesn't make it okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's not okay to pretend those mistakes never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, kind of with it goes along with what you said, they did more than just make mistakes.
Yes.
They made very outright false advertising.
Yeah, they lied to the consumer, which which is an issue, which is a big issue. It's an issue.
It wasn't even like it was kind of ambiguous. Like
Yeah.
they made very direct lies, like leading up to like the week of the game's release, and then ended up getting called out on it. And I remember the lead developer at Hello Games, the guy who's in like all the interviews and at E3 for like the past 2 years before the game came out, like had a complete meltdown on Twitter, and he was like yelling at the fans for like, you know, catching up with them and finding out that it was just all bullshit. You know, he was just, it's almost like him and the rest of the studio were just not at a point where they were willing to like accept criticism over the fact that they just made complete bold-faced lies. So like, yeah, I mean, going like with what you said, I don't believe in like, you know, I don't believe that people should forget that.
Yeah.
At all.
I guess what I'm saying is forgive, don't forget.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, hopefully people... I just don't want it to be a trend where companies release games that are incomplete
Yes.
and then go back and fix them. You know what I mean?
That's a problem, and I don't know. It's a difficult situation as a consumer to be in, because, you know, on one hand, you don't want to encourage, like you said, a habit in developers to release half-finished games and, oh, we'll fix it later and people will still enjoy it. But at the same time, I also don't want to encourage developers to, release a shitty game, people buy it, and then we can just abandon it and make another shitty game. It's difficult, and it's just so shitty that we're stuck in this situation where it feels like those are our two options when it comes to big name publishers and big name developers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to feel it. I don't know what the solution is, other than, I mean, what, you know, every single personality in gaming says all the time: don't pre-order, don't support this shitty behavior. But I mean, you know, it's
once that happened to me, I was like, I am never making that mistake again.
Yeah.
Like that was a very defining, like, learning moment for me.
But there are
Just
people.
this in
But there are
general.
people who do it month after month after month. Every time a big game, like, oh, the new Call of Duty's coming out, I'm pre-ordering that to get the green skin for my character instead of the tan skin.
Yeah. Funny thing is too, I didn't even pre-order No Man's Sky, but I did essentially the same thing. By just the second it dropped, I was just like, okay, bought. Like,
Yeah.
I bought it digitally the second it came out. You know.
See, and I've been fortunate enough that most of the times when I've done that, I've gotten good games. Like in the most recent example that I did that with Monster Hunter World, and I felt really bad about doing it even immediately after I got it. But fortunately, Monster Hunter World turned out to be a stellar game. But yeah, no, I know. Going all the way back to the incident with the War Z. I remember I had a friend who was just absolutely nuts. He was talking about how it was going to be the greatest game ever, and it looked so cool, and it was going to be like Stalker meets Daisy, and it was going to blow all the other games out of the water, and it was straight up abandonware. They made the bare minimum that it could be considered technically a game, and then released it, and disappeared with a shit ton of pre-order money. And yeah,
It's
no.
always a shame.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have to vote with our wallets.
Exactly.
Don't pre-order unless we know something's good. Wait until stuff comes out before we buy it. You know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're all. I think most gamers are guilty of it. It's something that everybody has to be better about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are better. I mean, look at all the backlash that EA got from Battlefront, and they eventually had to choose, or they had to change their ways. So,
But I mean, this is the thing. I don't know that they have though.
well, only time will tell.
Only time will tell. I will say, actually, what is it? A Way Out actually did just recently. It's one of their best-selling games now. It's also coincidentally their most consumer-friendly game they've released in a very long time. It's like something like a $30 game. That it's a multiplayer. Well, not a multiplayer only game, but multiplayer is heavily encouraged, and only one of the people playing needs to actually own the game in order to play it multiplayer. It's a really good deal, and just by virtue of it being a consumer friendly game, it's quickly skyrocketed to be one of their most popular and best selling games, even with the tag phrase "poor man's Uncharted" following it around.
Yeah.
Well, I think unless you guys had something else you wanted to talk about, I think that pretty much does it for us.
Yeah.
Just,
does anyone have anything they want to promote or plug?
I don't think I've got anything that I need to cover, unless you guys have something going on.
I need to plug in my laptop.
If anybody likes Dota and likes watching Dota, probably next Sunday will be the next playoff match. That's why I was late tonight. I might be late next week. Hopefully not. We had some very long games tonight. So if anybody wants to come by and watch, you're more than welcome to. I know it was casted and streamed. And the VODs are up there if you want to go back and see the games we've already played. Our team is DogDad420. We're yeah. So
all right.
That's all I've got to plug.
Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the Not Important Gaming Podcast with Jeremy, Reed, and Derek. I am Jeremy.
I'm Derek.
I am Reed.
And we'll be back next week at 11:30 p.m. Central Time. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy your evening.